Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be the first of many, many talks with Dr. Linda Tello. These talks are going to unveil little by little by little the stories of some of the key projects that she's doing with the Quiros Indians of Peru in the Andes, in the Chua Chua Valley, of which both of us have our ties. Mine is the Hapun Valley. But I'm really, really excited about this because not only after we discuss and set the stage for where the Quiros Indians live and what the environment looks like and what it is to live and be in that environment and some of the projects that Linda is dealing with day to day, which we really need to be able to socialize. But I'm really excited because we're going to also get into some cosmology. We're also going to get into some of the sciences of what the Quiros stand for. So sit back, relax, and be prepared. We're really excited. And I'd like to start off with welcome, Dr. Linda Tello.
Good morning, Enolia. Thank you so much for that sweet introduction. As Enolia said, I am Dr. Linda Tello. My background is as a doctor in civil, environmental, and sustainable engineering. My ethnicity is from Colombia, from the Andes, so not quite Peru, but definitely still the Andes, because I know that in indigenous cultures a lot of times didn't have all these country boundaries, so it was mainly based on tradition. So I am familiar with the Andean spiritual traditions of the indigenous people, thanks to my ancestry. Let me see where to start. So I started Whole Earth Engineering Inc., which is the nonprofit that I work through in order to support the projects of the Caro when I was obtaining my doctorate. And I noticed that there was a need to have more alignment in the way that we do our built environment and the integration of indigenous knowledge so that we can mitigate a lot of these climate issues that we're all seeing today. And to me, what's even more like mind-blowing is that the Caro have shared with me that they're seeing their community of Chua Chua. So the Caro Nation is comprised of 5 annexes, and the one I'm most familiar with is Chua Chua. Enolia can probably help us name the other 4. I am mostly connected with the Chua Chua annex. I'm wanting to work with the other ones because I know, Enolia, your goddaughter is in one of the farther annexes. The Chua Chua is the first one, and there's 4 others, and Enolia's goddaughter is in like the last one. And I apologize if I'm not familiar with all the names.
Go ahead.
I figure like one at a time, we'll start with the projects in the Chua Chua annex, and we'll have those as pilot projects. And once we have that done, then we can move on to the other annexes. But what I was saying was that it was really mind-blowing to me that Ruben, the young man that I was able to connect with. So I was initiated into the Caro tradition through Celia Blackwood. She is at the IU or community down in Tucson, Arizona, called Heartstone Healing. So, and she's a graduate of the Four Winds, as is Enolia. And so through that, I was connected to the Caro community, through which I met Ruben's mother, Doña Sunta Kispi. And then unfortunately, in late October 2019, she passed away. But that her passing was actually a catalyst for me to connect with her son, Ruben. And as we know, the next year, 2020, we hit COVID. And so kind of being hunkered down at home, Ruben and I talked a lot through Zoom, and he was like, he had just graduated with his degree. He's the first person in his community to graduate with an undergraduate in hospitality and tourism. And I had just graduated myself, and I wanted to really start up my nonprofit, Whole Earth Engineering, and I needed a project and he needed some sponsors. So that whole unfortunate world event of COVID allowed us to actually come together and start building some bridges between what his vision for his community is and his eco-tour company called Earth, and then my organization, wholeearthengineering.org or weinc.org. And so I started helping Ruben because he was telling me that their community, which is about 14,678 feet above sea level, was now experiencing severe droughts. So they're at the very top of the Andes in Peru. And because their traditions did not have knowledge for water storage, because they never had water shortages before or droughts before,
Yeah.
Ruben was telling me that about 500 alpaca were dying per year up at the Caro community because of drought. And I was like, what? They're 500. And I'm like, that's a lot. And I'm like, what is your average number of alpaca? And he said that there are about 2,000 alpaca in the community, and that each year about 500 were dying. And I was like, that's crazy.
So here you are, you've met Ruben, and it's so wonderful that you had the opportunity to meet him, his family, and really get to know him and to understand that their issues with the droughts and the alpaca are really daunting so much so that it's seriously impacting their way of life. I mean, how did you choose to address what was going on, and why did you feel inclined to address what was going on?
Wow. Okay, great questions. So how did I address it? Well, I think for me personally, the way I addressed it was I recognized, and this is me, how I kind of internalized this. I felt I had a responsibility as someone that has ancestry also from the Andes, so very familiar cosmology as the Caro deep in my DNA. I felt a responsibility as someone whose parents had made decisions to leave Colombia to come to the US. I felt that I was a bridge, that I could connect my opportunities here and my understanding of the culture so that I could somehow figure out how to help them. That was really the first step. Was I was feeling this responsibility. Plus, having had this call in my heart many years before to connect with indigenous cultures, specifically in like Colombia and Peru area. And universe found me two amazing teachers, one land spirits, Pamela Paniton in Sykesville, Maryland, and then Celia in Tucson. That really, they were very unexpected, but they had direct connections to the community. And then somehow the universe brought those connections to me when I was like feeling them in my heart and like not having a clue how I was going to have that happen. And then here it manifests. I felt that somehow because of that, there was a purpose that happened to me. And therefore I had a responsibility to figure it out. Like I had no idea how I would do it, but I just opened my heart and I was like, Spirit, help.
Well, that and also other circumstances actually happened to us too. So I happen to know that you were very close with the family. And so understanding that you were close with the family and understanding what the family meant to you, what was it with your experience with the family that drew you to them so closely that you would take on this so passionately?
You know, it was interesting. When I first met Ruben's mother, Doña Sunta, at one of the retreats and the trainings where she had come from Peru down to Tucson to give to the IU in Tucson, we were on a hike up to the Santa Rita Mountains, and there was one moment where I remember chatting with her and I was like, this is a baby mountain we're climbing compared to the Andes. And she's like, yes, baby mountain compared to the ones in the Andes. And it's like, yeah, when I got a chance to go to the Andes, I remember that moment. I'm like, oh my God, it was like a little molehill for her, the hike where I was like, oh my God. But in that moment, I remember it was very interesting. She was kind of a couple of paces ahead of me. And there was just something, there was just like this inner feeling, this inner knowing that I felt like there was some sort of quantum connection, some otherworldly connect, something. Like
Yes,
there was something that there was some other type of connection there with her, that she was like a portal, just I don't really, it was kind of beyond words. It was more like this sort of visceral feeling of that having known her was going to lead to something else, even though it wasn't words. It was just sort of this energetic connection that I felt there. And I didn't know what it was. It was just sort of like, oh, this
No,
is,
no, no. I had that same feeling when it was with Doña Bernardina, and I was in session with her, and there was something that passed between us that I couldn't
yeah.
explain to anyone. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like something that doesn't have words and it's so subtle,
Mhm.
but you're like, this is a this is a seed. This is something, and it's gonna lead. And that's why it was interesting, because I became close to the family honestly after her passing, which was
Mm,
kind of interesting. And it was her younger son Danny who reached out to me first on Facebook Messenger, because we were all kind of connected through the community on Facebook Messenger. And so I reached back to him, and he and I chatted a bit. And then he told me a little about his brother, Ruben, his older brother, Ruben. And then Ruben and I started connecting. And I don't know, Ruben and I just ended up having this amazing bond. And I think what really drew me to Ruben was that I could see his passion. Like, he really wants to have his eco tour company, I was saying, like Earth, really take off, because his grandfather was Don Manuel Quispe, who was known as the last Inca. And then
yes.
his mother and father had done a lot of spiritual traditions. They traveled around the world, which is how I met her. She traveled around the world giving the spiritual traditions of the Inca, the Caro. And I could just see in Ruben that he really had this vision and this passion for his people. And I think for me, as someone wanting to have access to be able to do the work that I wanted to do, which is to support Indigenous communities, learn their traditions, help them get the infrastructure they needed. And then with the knowledge that I would gain from their traditions, figure out ways to integrate that into the Western space, into how we do things, so that we can align what we build in a way that's also supporting our needs and supporting the earth, so that we don't continue in this direction that's really impacting and creating a lot of negative climate change in our world.
Right. And so, knowing all of this and knowing that now, I'm going to fast forward just a little bit, that the alpaca
Definitely.
are dying, the drought is taking place. How did this spur you into action? What was the first activity that you did, because you've done so much?
Well, the first thing that I did was I went to visit the community. I was kind of between jobs in the moment, so that's always helpful. You have a lot more leave.
Yes.
So I was between jobs, and I was able to take 2 weeks to go to Peru. But what I decided to do, rather than just tour myself,
Mhm.
was I asked Ruben if he could create an itinerary where we could travel and take 8 youth in the community with me. Because I had the first project that we'd ever done was have them learn to do video ethnography and photography, because I wanted the kids to be able, the people in the community, but we were focused on the youth there, to be able to learn how to do videos and photography, so that they can tell their own stories from their own perspective. Because
And I'm
one of
going
the
to
things
pause
that
you
I
right
asked,
there, because this is so important. I want to emphasize it. You
okay,
wanted them to do video ethnography so that they can tell their own stories, not us as outsiders going in,
yes,
seeing them, and then telling the stories from our perspectives, but that they would be
yes,
actually taught how to use the cameras, how to work with everything, and tell the stories from their own perspectives. And this is so important, because
yes,
we as outsiders come in and think that, okay, I'm going to tell you how to do this, how to do that, and then my perspective's right. Your perspective sometimes doesn't even count. Okay. And then here's how you do it. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is the story that's supposed to be had from that. And I
yes.
want you to share this really, really deeply, why you decided the video ethnography, some of the first projects to go in.
Well, for me, when I was doing a postdoc at um, at my university, one of the principal investigators told me that my opinions didn't count because I wasn't from a federally recognized tribe. So being told that I was chosen for a project that was looking at catalysts and barriers of Native American students in engineering and professorships. So I was chosen specifically because I was one of the only PhDs that had Indigenous background that they had graduating. So they needed an Indigenous scholar, Indigenous student to participate in their research. So they chose me for that. But then when I gave my perspectives, they literally flat out told me that mine didn't count because I wasn't from a federally recognized tribe. So I think the experiences that I had in in my postdoc in doing this research was was like the final, for me, was like the final push for doing that, because my whole life growing up I'd been marginalized and silenced because I'm known as what's called a hybrid person in psychology. It's like I'm not one box or the other, but I'm multiple boxes at the same time, and you can't really separate that. So coming from a space where I was always sort of all like a, I don't know, like a stew, and how else to describe it. I wasn't one or the other, but yet people always trying to separate me, and they were always trying to tell me what I was or what I wasn't, even though I didn't identify with that or what I could do or what I couldn't do. I was like, wait a minute, I have a story too, so I think for me, it was also part of my personal journey. And you and I chatted a little bit about this
Yeah.
before video, and like me really learning to find my own voice. So in recognizing for myself the importance of me learning to find my own voice, I could see it in these youth, and I could see it in the community, how like colonization had affected them and was still affecting them and not allowing them to find their own power so that they can use their voice. And so I felt that this was a way, because, I'm always shocked. Even when I went to Colombia to visit my family, they're like 12,500 feet, high in the mountains,
Yeah.
agricultural community. They always have the latest technology. And I'm always like, wow. And like the kids at the Carol also, they all had their cell phones. It wasn't fancy like iPhones, but they all had their smartphones and everything. And then when I met Barnaby, the president there, and I loved him so much. It really kind of shows you how kids and parents are the same, and regardless of the culture,
Mhm.
because his 14-year-old daughter, she was in the class, but she was more interested in texting her boyfriend kind of thing rather than paying attention, which probably sounds very familiar to many teachers. But then here was her father, who was probably like 33, a young guy, because the cultural norms are like that. And I loved it. And he's here like taking the phone and taking the classes and the stabilizer, and he's all in it. And it was just really beautiful to see that. So yeah. But it
Yeah.
was it was about finding my voice and recognizing the importance of other people that had also had challenges and continually been marginalized, to find their voice as well so they can speak for themselves.
And some of the stories have come out that the cures have shot themselves are really beautiful and profound. Where can they be found?
Wow. So right now I know that there is one site on Venmeo. I'd have to get you the link so you can put
Okay.
it at the
Yeah, I'll put it
bottom.
down.
And I have a lot of the ones that they have sent me on my Whole Earth Engineering Inc. Instagram.
Okay.
So I'm going to update the name, but like We Inc. But right now it's still Whole Earth Engineering Inc. So it's on my Instagram. So all the videos on there, except for a few that I've done when I'm doing like an Earth Day thing or something, but everything that I post on there comes to me directly from the Carol community. They send it to me on WhatsApp and I upload it there. So yeah, it's pretty amazing to see how technology is allowing us to connect with people that have completely different cultures, completely different lifestyles than we do, but we can learn about them. So again, it's coming from their perspective. So one of the things I love, in spite of having taken the training and stuff like that, a lot of them, they still do like how we do videos, kind of thing, all shaky, whatever. But I love it because there's an authenticity in it. And then on some of the videos that they do, it's a peek into a lifestyle and a culture that many of us would never even know, like at all. Like one of the most recent ones, Barnaby sent me one that they did a despacho, which is an offering for helping us find sponsors through Engineers Without Borders. We're looking for either a student chapter, a professional chapter, and then any donors that would like to donate to the projects that we're doing there. We'll talk about those here in a little bit. But Barnaby did a video of women right by the lagoon that they have, which is one of the projects we're going to do. And these women are walking around, I believe they're walking around a fire, and I don't remember exactly, but they're walking around in a circle and they're saying all these chants and these songs. And I had no idea that was something that they did.
Yeah, I mean, some
So
songs are so sacred that I've only witnessed one sacred ceremony that the Kiros have done where the song that they sang, they're like, this cannot be repeated outside of these premises, and they're playing the flute and they're singing this beautiful, beautiful chant of doing a community despacho and just gathering with the community. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And then every once in a while, just hearing key songs or sacred songs when we're doing despacho traveling, because I've traveled with them from Bolivia all the way through Peru and the Andes. And, I wanted to pause because a lot of people are hearing the story about being in the Andes, being at high altitude. But I want to emphasize how hard life is where they are, okay? Because when I went to visit the very last village of my goddaughter, we were so high that if I walked 100 feet or maybe 50 feet, I was out of breath. I had to stop, pause, catch my breath, and then walk another 50 feet or 100 feet until I got to the location just across the mountain from one house to another of where I wanted to go.
And then meanwhile, the 8-year-olds are running around in their sandals, running circles around here. I know, I love it.
We were in the clouds. The cloud cover actually passes. The cloud cover is all over you. You're in the clouds, in the midst of the clouds. And then when the cloud cover finally dissipates, it's cold. And they don't even bother wearing shoes. And here I am with hiking boots, socks, and everything else to stay warm. And the adjustment to the mist and everything is so wonderful. They are so at one with the environment.
Oh yeah, that
was amazing.
Yes. So when I went to visit them, it seems like your community, the village where your goddaughter lives, I think they're a little bit higher. But I don't know
the last village. They're the very last village. So the very last village in the Hapun where my goddaughter lives. And I was just like, when I saw all of this, and there I am, trying to grin and bear the cold, and it's like they're running around like it's nothing at all, and it's just like, wow, all of the things it takes for us to truly adapt.
When I went there, I was wearing long johns, a pair of jeans. I had I can't remember. It's like this snowboard outfit supposed to keep you warm. So I had my snowboard outfit on, some thermal socks, my hiking boots, and then I had again, thermal underwear, a sweater, I think I had a leather jacket on underneath, and then I had my what you call it, my snowboarding outfit on top. I had an aviator hat with all the fuzz inside, and then I had my hood from my snowboard jacket, and I had these insulated leather gloves. I was freezing. I slept like that. And I had a good friend of mine named Sherry. We had gone to Peru before one time, but I didn't have a chance to visit the Caro at that time. She grew up in Canada, and I don't know why, but I guess Canadians do this. I'm warm-blooded, so I never, but her family went ice fishing. I'm like, why? But I guess that's what Canadians do. I'm not from Canada, so my family's from Colombia. But because her family had gone ice fishing, she knew that one thing that you could do is fill up 2-liter empty bottles with boiling hot water.
Hot water bottle. Yes.
Yes, I had Ruben do 5. So the community was so nice. They filled up 5 2-liter bottles with boiling water just for me. So I'm still wearing all my outfit in bed, and I have like a couple of wool blankets, and I'm putting these hot water bottles all around my body because, oh my God, they didn't have windows in their homes. They're like Adobe homes
Yes,
style, kind of like
yes,
mud bricks.
that's
So there's
right.
no windows. So when I call it, like, I know it's not the Arctic, but it feels like Arctic air, coming in like to like between 12 and 3 a.m. and that I don't know, the wind shifts or whatever
Yes.
happens, like there's some global
Or the
shifting thing
clouds
that
come
happens.
down, or whatever the case may be. Yes.
Oh my God, the cold that comes in. I was under those blankets and I would be moving these hot water bottles because even with all that, all those layers, the cold was so insane. I've
Yeah,
never been
and I
that
think
cold in my
we're
life.
in the Hapoon village. I think that we're a little bit higher up than, because you're the first village. Rubens is the
I was the
first,
first village.
and we're the
Mm-hmm.
last village, so you can't go any further. There's no more
Right,
road. It ends
right,
there, and you're at
right.
the
You're literally
island.
the end of the world.
I had two hot water bottles, one in the back, one in the front, and I had a 0 rated degree sleeping bag, the whole 9 yards.
Yes, I had like an Arctic sleeping bag, -40. It was still so cold.
Oh,
It was
but
unreal.
yeah, but I living there, you have to adjust. You have to adjust.
Yeah, and what I saw was that the way that people adjust to this is they all sleep literally in a pile. They all
Yeah,
sleep together in a pile because
yeah.
the body heat keeps them warm. And I was like, I want to join you,
Not only that, and
but
the
I just
straw also keeping them off of the
Mhm.
ground and the ground level too. So,
Exactly.
I wanted to emphasize this, and then there are no corner stores or things that you think that you can go get. All right. So the major crop that they grow are potatoes, all kinds of potatoes,
Yes.
every kind of potato
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
And
Peru apparently has like, I don't think they grow all 6,000 varieties that Peru
uh-huh.
has, but they grow a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's actually like a National Potato Institute or something in Peru. Like,
Mhm.
I think it's in Lima. I think that's where it is. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's in Lima or Cusco, but I think it's in Lima. And I was like, I didn't know there were so many potatoes. But yeah. So yes, their main food is potato. But
So
that's one of the challenges is they need to have more diverse nutrition because
yes.
potatoes.
Yes, yes. And the thing about it is that if they don't have what they need there, then we're talking about 50 to hundreds of miles before you can get to a place that's called a grocery store or
Yes,
anything like that. So
exactly.
I just wanted to kind of set the scope so that people
Yes.
really understand what we're talking about when we talk about being in the mountains and living that kind of mountain life. When I drove up there from Portocumbo, it took probably 2 hours on cliff ledge, two-laner.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. And you're like
curvature
you're looking
road,
over
and you
the
look
edge like,
over and
oh.
you're like, okay, I'm going to die if anything happens. If anything
Mm-hmm.
happens, and when two vehicles are passing, that's like the most nerve-wracking piece that you can do. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, because landslides happen there a lot, and that's how people die, because a landslide comes and just
Wipes you
either
away.
the road
Road's
disappears from
gone.
under you or the boulders come down and knock the buses or whatever off the road down into the abyss, and the thing is really high. It's just insane.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
So I just
it's
wanted to set
crazy.
I wanted to set the environment so that people can understand what we're talking
Yeah,
about
but
and why the
it's so
outback is
important.
important.
It's so important, Enolia, because you look at the photos and you're like, oh, it's so beautiful, which it is. It's the scenery, the landscape is stunning, but you don't get the sense of how harsh the living is there. Because I remember when we were leaving, I mean, I have a few other adventures in between. I looked at where the road was because they had cut like flat parts to make the road. And it's like literally you leave the house and they cut out like parts in the mountain to flatten so you can have like a flat house, so you're not like this. But like, so I stepped out of the house to go. It was probably like maybe 100 yards the climb, which isn't too bad to the road from where the house was. But I felt like when I got out of the house, I could have just put my hand in front like this and leaned on the leaned on the mountain that I needed to climb, because it was like so steep. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Because I didn't sleep very well. And I think Montezuma and what's his Patacucci or Pataculti, I forget his name for now. I don't, yeah, Patacucci, and then Atahualpa. I think all. So the Mexican, the Peruvian, the Colombian Viracocha. I think all of the gods from Mexico to down Mesoamerica all the way through South America, they all decided to visit me like a couple days before from both directions. You know, so I was so weak, you know. So I'm just looking at this like, oh my God. And I mean, it's seriously like so steep. And I had to stop, like you were talking before, take like maybe 2-3 steps,
And
just
wait,
stop for a moment. And it was, and I had to get my willpower, because it was just like, oh my God, I don't want to. Because
Yeah.
it was so taxing on the body. But again, you know, I'd been sick, and then the oxygen is very low. Because actually we met a doctor that had gone up there to do some sort of, I don't know, some sort of study on low oxygen. And she said that she had like one of those pulse oximeters, I think it's what they're called. And she said that she measured hers the first day she was there, and it was 85. So my understanding is that that's like the percentage of oxygen in your blood. And she was like, normally at like sea level, if someone's 85, they would take them to the hospital, because they're basically, what's it, something hypooxygenated. I don't know what the medical term is, because I'm an engineer, not a doctor. But you know, it means you had really low blood, like low oxygen in your blood.
Yeah.
Then they would take them to the hospital, and she was like, that's what it was for her at 85. And I was like, yeah, I believe it. Yeah, but setting the stage is so important, because I think, again, as I was starting to say, when you see the imagery, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning, but you don't realize how harsh, how hard it is to really live there.
Yeah.
You know, and I honestly, I had gone there because I wanted to visit them. And like I said, I think I started to say that when I went there for the 2 weeks, one of those weeks there, I didn't just go on the tour myself. I asked Ruben, because you know, he's got Andean Spirit.Earth, his eco tour company. I asked him to have it so that all of us could go, so that all of the kids with the parents that were participating in the video ethnography and the photography training, that we could all go together to a lot of sites. Because one of the things that I was not very happy about when I heard was that many of the youth that were the actual descendants of the Inca had never had the opportunity to go visit any of their ancestral sites. But here we have like thousands and thousands, maybe even millions of tourists coming in every year to Peru. But yet the very children, the very people who are the descendants of all these wonders that people come to see, had never even had a chance to go see their own ancestral sites. And I was like, well, if I'm going to go, let's all go together.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that's why we're here, because I want you to share these stories. So it's been wonderful. And we are going to take and unveil the stories a little at a time, a little at a time. So stay tuned. The stories are still coming, and we're going to talk about the projects. This is Dr. Linda Tello, and we want to thank you for being here. And we want to thank you for what you've shared so far. And there's so, so much more to come. We've just barely pulled down the first layer of the onion, everyone. So
Enolia knows I can talk, so she's got to rein me in.
So hang in there, because this is a series, and this is one I'm so excited about. So thank you, Dr. Linda Tello.
Thank you.
And until our next show, thank you so much.
Thank you.